So today I'd like to talk about temporal values. And uh, temporal values in this case are areas in your life that you value more than a relationship with God or others. So one of the big ones right off the bat would be money. Another one would be possessions, let's say personal goals, hobbies, careers, fame or prestige, etc. So many times our focus is not on the eternal things, but rather on these things which are just in the here and now, and in the long run are not really all that important. An example would be raising your child and being there for them is far more important for their development than a fancy house or a nice car, as an example. As well, let's say loving your wife and spending time with her, quality time with her, is more important than the promotion that you may receive, which ends up giving you a little bit more money, but a lot more responsibilities, which takes away from your time to be with her or your family. And I can't tell you how many times, especially with that one, relationships have broken up because one spouse or the other has put more value on a career or hobbies or whatever, and just focusing too much time on that rather than focusing any time on each other. And many couples end up drifting apart, and then they just go their separate ways because they don't have any relationship, and it's quite sad. So I mentioned hobbies, and an example of that for me would be fishing. Let's go with that. I enjoy fishing. I also tie my own flies and make some of my own gear. And as I said, I enjoy going, but if I've been really busy and I haven't had much time to spend with my wife or family, then many times I would rather stay home and spend that time with them rather than go fishing, even though I enjoy it, which is kind of different than many men who go fishing because they're trying to escape their wife or family. However, I go because it's fun. But you know what's even better than going fishing? That is coming home to a wife or a spouse who doesn't feel ignored or unloved, because she won't be happy, and then you're not going to be happy until your next fishing trip. And I guarantee you spend more time at home than you do fishing. So that's something you may want to consider. We're going to look at a couple verses now. Let's go with Matthew 6:24. I'll read it here. It says, "No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money." It's either God or the temporal value, your choice. Luke 12:34 says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." If you're treasuring up things on this earth, then this earth is going to be where your treasure is. If you're treasuring up character and relationships and building a relationship with God and focusing on those things, then your treasure will be in heaven. Philippians 3 verse 8, it says, "What is more, I consider everything a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord, for whose sake I have lost all things. I consider them garbage," and the word is actually dung, "that I may gain Christ." So everything on this earth, Paul considered garbage. He considered it dung, because he would rather have Christ than anything that this world can offer. You see, it really boils down to selfishness. And if I care more about my ambitions and needs and goals more than I care about relationships, then we are selfish and we have an issue with temporal values. And the last thing here, I've been reading some articles dealing with our selfishness compared to Christ and the early church. And the people in the early church used to self-sacrifice all the time. They would sell extra properties. They would bring the money to Jesus' feet. History tells that Nicodemus was a very, very, very rich man, and he died a poor man because he was supplying so many people's needs, and the funding that was spreading the gospel in the days of the early church was largely through Nicodemus. And when you can recognize selfishness and what we value over and above God and are over and above our fellow humans, it's quite astounding. So let me give you some examples of things that we may hear, or even say something ourselves, like this: why should I give them anything? They didn't work for it. I can't afford to buy somebody groceries this week, but we can afford to buy ourselves the new rod and reel. We can go out and spend $50 to $100 on a meal, or we can buy a new pair of shoes, or afford to get our nails or hair done, etc. The reality is that we have made selfishness very normal in our westernized society, and we don't think of helping other people very much. And we don't even think that we could be selfish because we have all these needs that take up all of our time and our resources and, our affections. The Christians in Acts would sacrifice above and beyond for each other, and they would do it all the time. And when we're all Christ's body, and if one of our members is hurting, even if it's a finger or a toe, it affects the entire rest of the body. You're either nursing an injury or you're in pain and you can't concentrate. It's there, it's nagging, and it affects everything. And until it's healed, you can't do anything. You're affected until it's healed. So sometimes it takes time to spend with somebody. Sometimes it may take resources to help somebody, to lift somebody up out of the ditch that they've fallen into. And we have to recognize that God gives us funds, and He expects us to help each other out with those funds. And many of the times we can, but we don't, because we have all these things that we think we need, when in actual fact we don't, and we don't have any idea what self-sacrificing love is. So I want us to look at that and to ask God to take selfishness and pride and these things out of our heart, that we have it replaced with that self-sacrificing love for each other. And the sooner we do that, the sooner we get to go home. So that's all I have for you today. Hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. Have a great day.